everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
So today, we're taking a look at this podcast script, and it's all about fluency versus perfect grammar.
Right.
And I thought this would be a really fun one to dig into.
Absolutely.
Because, you and I both talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that jumped out at you when you took a look at this?
Well, what really struck me was that they're not just saying, oh, don't worry about grammar. It's more nuanced than that. They're actually breaking down the different types of grammatical errors.
Oh, interesting.
And they're saying some errors are really just informal style choices. So, not necessarily a barrier to understanding. It's more about what's appropriate for the situation.
So it's like, okay, it's not always about being right or wrong, but it's about what's appropriate for the context that you're in.
Exactly. And think about it. You probably do this all the time. In your own native language.
Oh, totally.
You have formal ways of speaking, formal ways of writing, and then you have casual, everyday language.
Yeah.
Same applies to English.
So how does this script recommend we actually approach this? Because textbooks are great for the basics, right? Yeah. But how do you learn the unwritten rules of informal English?
Well, one thing they emphasize is listening.
Okay.
Really listening to native speakers.
Okay.
In different contexts.
Got it.
It's about tuning your ear to how people actually speak, not just how. The grammar books say they should speak. It's like, brilliant. Observing the subtle differences between a formal dance and a spontaneous street performance.
I like that.
Both have rhythm and movement, but the style is completely different.
That's such a vivid analogy, and it makes me think about, those times when you cringe at your own textbook English?
Right.
You're like, it's technically correct, but it doesn't have that flow.
It sounds robotic.
Yeah. So, by listening to native speakers, we can start to internalize those subtle nuances and sound more natural, even if we're not always grammatically perfect.
Exactly. And, another point they bring up is how the role of grammar might actually shift as a learner progresses through different stages of fluency.
Okay, that's interesting.
So think about it. In the early stages, when you're building your vocabulary and basic sentence structures, grammar might feel like a lifeline.
Okay.
But as you become more comfortable expressing yourself, the focus might shift toward refining your style.
Okay.
And sounding more natural.
Gotcha.
Even if bending the rules a little.
So it's like it's a dance between precision and expression. And as you become more skilled, you find that sweet spot where meaning and natural flow come together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, remember that example from the script yesterday at Happy?
Yes. The one where the grammar is a bit off, but the meaning is clear.
Right. Now, what's interesting is they don't just brush it off as a simple error. They dig deeper and ask, why does this still work?
Yeah. Why does it work?
Right.
We understand it. But what's happening in our brains to fill in those grammatical gaps?
Well, the script highlights the power of context.
Okay.
Think about it. You rarely hear language in isolation.
Right.
You have facial expressions, body language, the surrounding environment, and your own shared knowledge. All of these factors work together to create meaning, even if the grammar isn't perfect.
So our brains are like master detectives, basically piecing together clues to solve the mystery of communication.
Yeah, it's like we have this internal grammar editor that's constantly at work, smoothing out the bumps and helping us make sense of what we hear.
Isn't there a risk that relying too much on context could lead to misunderstandings?
That's a great question.
Like, what if the error is significant enough to actually change the intended meaning?
Right. And the script acknowledges that concern. However, they argue that most of the time. These minor grammatical slips don't actually derail communication. Think about it. Even native speakers misspeak, use slang, abbreviate.
Yeah.
And we still understand each other.
Oh, that's so true. I've never thought about it that way.
Right.
So it's not about being grammatically perfect all the time. It's about being understandable and conveying your message effectively.
Exactly. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The script also points out that attitudes towards grammatical errors can actually differ across cultures.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Tell me more.
So, some cultures might be more tolerant of grammatical imperfections, and they might focus more on the speaker's effort and intention rather than strict adherence to the rules.
Okay.
While other cultures might place a higher value on grammatical accuracy, especially in formal settings.
It's not just about learning the grammar rules. It's also about understanding the social context in which those rules are applied.
Yeah, imagine you're having a casual conversation with friends versus presenting a formal business proposal.
Right.
The level of grammatical precision you would aim for would likely be quite different.
That makes total sense.
Right.
It's like wearing different clothes for different occasions. You don't wear a tuxedo to the beach.
Precisely.
Right.
And the same goes for language. You adapt your style to suit the situation and the audience. Now, here's where the script takes a really interesting turn. It delves into the psychology of language acquisition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
They talk about how our brains are wired for pattern recognition and how we naturally pick up on linguistic patterns through exposure and interaction.
So it's not just about memorizing rules. It's about immersing ourselves in the language and letting our brains kind of do their thing.
Exactly. Find patterns, make connections.
So it's more like learning to dance than learning to solve a math equation.
Yeah.
You feel the rhythm, you move with it, and eventually it becomes second nature.
That's a great analogy. And this is where the script starts to tackle those anxieties that many English learners face.
Yeah.
You know, the fear of making mistakes, the pressure to sound perfect, and how those feelings can actually hinder fluency.
Oh, totally. I can't tell you how many times I've hesitated to speak English because I was afraid of making a mistake.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
The script emphasizes that. This fear is completely normal, but it's also something we need to overcome to truly become fluent.
How do they recommend we tackle this fear of making mistakes?
Well, they encourage us to shift our perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, we should view them as stepping stones. Every error is an opportunity to learn and refine our skills.
I like that, but easier said than done, right?
Absolutely. It takes conscious effort to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. And the script offers some practical strategies to help us do just that.
Okay, give me the goods.
Okay, so one of the key suggestions is to practice speaking without fear of judgment. Now, this might sound daunting.
It does.
But it doesn't mean you have to give a TED Talk tomorrow.
Right.
The point is to find safe spaces where you can experiment with the language, make mistakes, learn from them without feeling self-conscious.
So that could be conversations with friends, online language exchange groups.
Absolutely.
Even just talking to yourself in English.
Exactly. It's about creating opportunities for low-pressure practice.
Got it.
Where you can focus on communication rather than perfection.
Okay. And then the other thing they talked about was surrounding yourself with English as much as possible.
Yeah.
So watching movies, listening to podcasts, reading books.
All the things we love to do.
All the good stuff.
Exactly.
The things you would do anyway.
Yeah.
So they call that immersion.
Immersion.
What they're saying is by exposing yourself to authentic English in that way, it helps your brain internalize the rhythms and the patterns of English without consciously analyzing every grammatical rule. So it's like learning to swim by jumping in the pool instead of just reading about it in a textbook.
You start to develop an intuitive sense of what sounds right, what flows naturally, what conveys your intended meaning.
So by immersing ourselves and by practicing without fear, we can actually train our brains to become more fluent, even if we're not grammar experts.
That's the key takeaway. It's about shifting our focus from the mechanics of grammar to the art of communication.
Okay, I'm really liking where this is going. So what are some of the techniques that they recommend to kind of boost fluency?
They dive into some really interesting specific techniques.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. One technique is the power of simplification.
Okay.
So it might sound counterintuitive, but they actually recommend starting with simple sentences.
Okay.
Especially when you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure about the grammar.
Yeah, I can see that. I know I've definitely been there where I'm trying to construct this elaborate sentence and I just get lost.
It becomes a jumbled mess.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of getting bogged down in complex grammar, focus on getting the message across with simple, direct language.
Choose clarity over complexity.
Okay. So What about, they mentioned something about shadowing. What is that?
Shadowing. It's a fantastic technique
Okay.
where you listen to native speakers
Mm-hmm.
and try to imitate their pronunciation, intonation, rhythm.
Oh, wow.
It's like having a vocal coach right in your ear,
Okay.
guiding you towards more natural-sounding English.
So it's not just about understanding the words. It's about embodying the way that a native speaker uses their voice.
It's about capturing the music of the language.
Wow.
The subtle pauses, the emphasis on certain words, the rise and fall of intonation, all of those elements add a layer of authenticity that goes beyond just grammar.
I can see that being really helpful, especially with pronunciation and developing that more natural flow.
And the best part is you can shadow anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
You can shadow your favorite TV shows, podcasts, audiobooks, even conversations you overhear.
Well, it's like having your own personal language lab right at your fingertips.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Now, another technique is something called chunking.
Chunking. I've never heard of that.
It's a technique borrowed from memory research.
Okay.
And it involves breaking down long sentences or complex information
Gotcha.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
So instead of trying to memorize an entire sentence or a whole paragraph, you break it down into these bite-sized pieces that are easier to digest.
Easier to process.
And so they're saying that this is helpful for both understanding and speaking English.
I say.
Okay.
Because when you break down language into chunks, you're not just memorizing words in isolation. You're understanding how those words work together to create meaning.
I see. So it's like building with Legos.
Yeah.
You start with individual bricks, but you can combine them in countless ways to create something amazing.
That's a great analogy. Now, the script also stresses the importance of active recall.
Okay.
And this one's all about testing yourself and retrieving information from your memory.
So it's not just passively absorbing information.
Right.
It's about actively engaging with it.
Actively engaging.
And making sure that it sticks.
It's like taking your brain to the gym and giving it a good workout.
Okay.
So the script suggests techniques like flashcards, quizzes, even simply trying to recall information without looking at your notes.
So it's more effective than just rereading the same material?
It's much more effective.
Over and over again.
Because active recall forces your brain to work harder.
Okay.
And this effort strengthens those neural pathways and helps solidify memories.
So it's like building muscle memory for your brain.
Exactly.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
The stronger it gets. Now, here's where the script takes a really interesting turn.
Okay.
It dives into the importance of embracing imperfection and letting go of the need to sound perfect all the time.
I think this is where a lot of English learners struggle.
It's a common trap.
Yeah. We get so caught up in trying to avoid mistakes that we end up holding ourselves back.
Exactly. And the script encourages us to reframe our thinking.
Okay.
It emphasizes that. Fluency isn't about speaking flawlessly.
Right.
It's about communicating effectively.
Yeah.
Even if that means making a few grammatical slips along the way.
So it's more important to get the message across than to worry about every little grammatical detail.
Precisely. And they remind us that even native speakers make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
They stumble over words. They mispronounce things. They use incorrect grammar sometimes.
That's comforting.
It's part of being human.
Yeah, that makes me feel better. So it's like giving ourselves permission to be imperfect.
Exactly. And here's where they offer some really helpful advice.
Okay.
They suggest finding language partners or communities where you can practice speaking without feeling judged.
So important.
Having that supportive environment where you can make mistakes and learn from them without feeling self-conscious.
That can make all the difference.
It can make all the difference. And they also highlight the importance of focusing on progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
So encourage yourself to celebrate your achievements, no matter how small they may seem, and to keep moving forward on your language learning journey.
So don't compare yourself to native speakers or feel like you need to reach this unattainable level of perfection.
It's about embracing the process, enjoying the journey, and recognizing that fluency is a continuous evolution, not a destination.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
I love that.
Now, they also give us some advice for dealing with those moments when we do make mistakes.
Okay. Yes.
And they suggest techniques like self-correction, and learning from feedback.
Okay.
So self-correction is all about noticing your own mistakes and try to correct them in real time.
In real time. Okay.
Now, this might sound challenging,
It does.
but it's a great way to develop your awareness of grammar and pronunciation.
So it's like you have this little internal editor that's constantly on the lookout.
Constantly on the lookout.
For errors.
And the more you practice self-correction,
Okay.
the more attuned you'll become to those subtle nuances of language.
Okay.
Now, learning from feedback is all about being open, constructive criticism, and using it to refine your skills.
So whether it's from a teacher, a language partner, or even just noticing how people react to what you're saying, feedback can give you valuable insight.
Valuable insight.
Into areas where you can improve.
Exactly. And receiving feedback isn't about feeling judged.
Right.
It's about recognizing opportunities for growth.
Okay, so it's about shifting our mindset.
Right.
From defensiveness to curiosity.
Exactly. Now, here's where the script takes another interesting turn.
Okay.
It delves into the role of confidence and fluency.
Confidence. I always thought of that as like something that comes after you've achieved a certain level of fluency.
That's a common misconception. The script argues that.
Yeah.
Confidence can actually be a driving force behind fluency, not just a result of it.
So it's not about waiting until you feel confident to speak.
Right.
It's about speaking, to build your confidence.
Exactly. It's about pushing past those feelings of self-doubt and embracing the opportunity to express yourselves, even if you're not 100% sure of every word or grammatical rule.
So it's about taking risks, putting yourself out there, and trusting that you can communicate effectively.
Yeah.
Even if you're not perfect.
Precisely. And they give some encouraging advice for building confidence. They talk about visualizing success, focusing on your strengths, and celebrating your achievements along the way.
So it's like giving yourself a little pep talk, reminding yourself that you are capable of achieving your language goal.
Exactly. Now, here's where they bring in something that I think is often overlooked.
Okay.
The power of nonverbal communication.
Nonverbal communication. I haven't really thought about that. As being related to fluency.
It's more connected than you might think.
Okay.
The script argues that our body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, even eye contact can play a significant role in how effectively we communicate.
So even if your grammar isn't perfect,
Yeah.
you can still convey meaning and connect with others through these nonverbal cues.
Absolutely.
Right.
Think about it. You can often tell how someone is feeling or what they're trying to say just by observing their body language.
It's true.
Even if you don't understand all the words.
Yeah.
It's like our bodies are speaking
Yeah.
a language of their own.
That's a good point.
And the script encourages us to be mindful of our nonverbal communication
Okay.
and to use it to enhance our fluency.
So how do we do that?
Well, they suggest techniques like practicing active listening, maintaining eye contact, using gestures to emphasize key points.
Okay.
So it's like adding another layer of expression to our communication.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, here's where the script takes a really interesting turn.
Okay.
It dives into the concept of embracing your own unique voice and style in English.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's not about trying to sound exactly like a native speaker.
Exactly.
But it's about developing your own personal way of expressing yourself in English.
That's the key takeaway. Fluency isn't about erasing your own identity and trying to fit into some predefined mold.
Yeah.
It's about bringing your own personality, your own cultural background, your own unique way of thinking into the language.
So it's about celebrating diversity.
Celebrating diversity.
And recognizing that there are many different ways to be fluent in English.
Exactly. And they encourage us to experiment with different styles, to find what feels natural and authentic to you, and to embrace the beauty of linguistic diversity. Now, they also talk about the importance of setting realistic goals and celebrating your achievements along the way.
This is so important for staying motivated.
So important.
And avoiding burnout.
Absolutely.
It's so easy to get overwhelmed.
It is.
By the vastness of the English language and feel like you're not making progress.
Right. And so they encourage us to break down our language learning journey into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay.
They suggest setting specific achievable goals.
Like what?
Whether it's learning, a certain number of new words each week,
Okay.
watching an English movie without subtitles,
Gotcha.
or having a conversation
Oh, okay.
with a native speaker.
Okay.
So it's about focusing on those small wins,
That small win.
recognizing how far you've come, rather than getting discouraged by how much further you have to go.
Okay, so focus on what you have accomplished, not what you haven't.
Exactly. And reward yourself for those achievements,
Like what?
whether it's treating yourself to a nice meal,
Okay.
buying a new book,
Yeah.
or simply taking a break and celebrating your progress.
It's important to acknowledge your efforts
It is.
and give yourself credit
Give yourself credit.
for all the hard work
Yeah.
that you're putting in.
Exactly. Now, here's where they talk about something
Yeah.
else that's important. Embracing challenges and setbacks as part of the learning process.
This is a tough one
It is a tough one.
because it's easy to get discouraged
It is.
when you hit a plateau
Right,
or make a mistake.
And they encourage us to shift our perspective.
Okay.
They argue that.
Yeah.
Challenges and setbacks are not failures.
Okay.
They're opportunities for growth.
So see them as stepping stones
Stepping stones.
rather than roadblocks.
Exactly. And they offer some strategies for dealing with those moments,
Okay, like what?
breaking down challenging tasks into smaller steps,
Okay.
seeking support from
Yeah.
language partners or teachers,
Gotcha.
reminding yourself that even native speakers make mistakes.
Right, right.
So it's about developing resilience,
Okay.
recognizing that. Setbacks are a natural part of the learning journey.
They are.
Now, here's where they talk about something that I think is really important.
Okay.
Finding joy in the process of learning English.
Yes. That's so important.
It's so easy to get caught up
Yeah.
in the grammar rules and the need to achieve fluency
Right.
that we forget to enjoy the journey itself.
Exact.
And they encourage us
Yeah.
to rediscover the joy of language learning,
Okay.
whether it's through exploring new cultures,
Yeah.
connecting with people from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
or simply savoring the beauty of words.
Yeah. You like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about finding those aspects of language learning
Yeah.
that spark our curiosity and make us excited to keep learning.
And they suggest ways to do that.
Okay, how?
Exploring topics that interest you,
Okay.
experimenting with
Yeah.
different learning methods,
Okay.
and surrounding yourself
Yeah.
with positive and supportive people.
Okay, I like that.
Make it a fun and engaging experience
Make it fun.
rather than a chore.
Yeah.
Now, here's where they talk about the final piece of the puzzle,
Okay.
putting it all together
Oh, okay.
and embracing fluency
Yeah.
as a holistic journey.
Okay.
So they remind us that. Fluency is not just about grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation.
Right.
It's about the convergence of all these elements.
Yeah.
The cognitive, the emotional,
Sure.
the social, and the cultural.
So it's about seeing language as this complex tapestry
Yes.
woven together from all these different threads.
Exactly. And they encourage us to approach fluency
Yes.
with this holistic mindset, to embrace the multifaceted nature of language, and to recognize that the journey is just as important as the destination.
I love that. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to encapsulate the essence of fluency, the
Yeah.
joy of discovery, the
Yes.
connection with others,
The connection.
and the continuous evolution
The evolution.
of our language skills. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
let's reflect on some of the key takeaways.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the points that really resonated with you?
I mean, for me, it's just like this whole idea that fluency is not about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about communication and confidence and being okay with making mistakes along the way.
Yeah, and I think what's so powerful about this script is it really challenges those traditional notions
Yeah.
of grammar being the be-all and end-all of fluency. You know? It's not about just memorizing rules. It's about using language
Yeah.
to connect with others,
Yes.
to express yourself,
Yeah.
to experience the world.
And I think what you were saying earlier about different cultures having different perceptions of grammatical errors,
Yes.
that was really eye-opening for me.
It's so important to remember that language is not just about rules. It's also about understanding the social context
Yeah.
and adapting your communication style accordingly.
Yeah, it's like, there's not one right way to dance.
Exactly.
There are all these different styles, and they're all beautiful in their own way.
And they're all valid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love how this script encourages us to embrace those imperfections, to see mistakes as opportunities for growth,
Absolutely.
and to find joy in the process of learning.
Got it.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in the pressure to be perfect.
Right.
But really, fluency is about so much more than just accuracy.
It's about connection.
Yes.
It's about authenticity.
Yes.
It's about expanding your horizons.
So if you had to choose, like, one empowering message from this deep dive, what would you say to English learners?
I would say fluency is not a destination. It's a journey.
I love that.
And it's a journey
Yeah.
that's unique to each individual.
Okay.
There's no one right way to learn English. And there's no finish line to cross.
Mm-hmm.
It's about embracing the process, finding joy in the journey, and celebrating your progress every step of the way.
That's beautiful. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. How can you shift your focus from grammatical perfection to confident communication? How can you embrace those imperfections and find joy in the process? Fluency is within your reach. It starts with a willingness to dive in, engage with the language, and express yourself authentically.
To go out there
Yeah.
and embrace the adventure of learning English.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep practicing and stay confident.